What up, YouTube? Jay Riz here. Have a guest on, Kyle Whitebear, my brother. I want to tell you a bit about how I met him. I met him in intensive outpatient treatment up at Good Road Recovery. He came in, he seemed like a pretty mean dude, had his backpack on and disgruntled and just mad all the time. I kind of steered clear from this guy, but, something happened. The magic happens, especially when you get into recovery. And this case, like of my brother here, the way he just changed, it's phenomenal. It's just the recovery warrior lifestyle that we live. Like that being said, I'm not the recovery warrior. This channel is called the Recovery Warrior, and we all are warriors in recovery. The people I asked, the brothers and sisters I asked to come on are, we're all fighting this battle of recovery. We're fighting this battle every day. Some of you might not understand yet, but I am Jay Rizzo. You can friend me on Facebook if you want, or you can follow me on the Recovery Warrior Facebook page. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. We are based out of Bismarck, North Dakota. I am trying to expand, but that'll come down the line. I got big plans for this channel, so just stay tuned and make sure you tell your friends, subscribe. And without further ado, my brother Kyle here.
Hey, I'm Kyle Whitebear. I was born, I guess, in Manduree, single parent home. Helped take care of my grandma when she was sickly as a young boy and things like that. And had the regular reservation home, you know what I mean? It was, the parties would come and end at grandma's house, and so drinking was a main part growing up in the household I lived in. Mom was a alcoholic, anti-drug addict. Everybody in my family drank or did drugs, my uncle was a hard alcoholic for many years, and so alcohol and drugs, not really drugs, but alcohol was really prevalent in our family, and that's what we did, man. Family get-togethers, brandings, different things, the family partied, man, and we lived in this stigma of work hard, party hard, and that's what I kind of grew up into as a young boy, trying to find my way into manhood. All my heroes were hard workers and cowboys, and we worked hard and partied hard, and that was the kind of thing that we did. I picked up my first drink. I probably was in 5th grade. Started using pills and smoking weed 6th grade, and it was off to the races, man. I found something that made me feel a part of life, made me feel, like I've arrived somewhere, had a bunch of friends, all my friends were doing it, later on, high school years, I ended up dropping out of high school due to some family circumstances and my usage and drinking and drugging in high school. Started working in the oil field. Kind of got my baby mama at the time pregnant and this and that. We had my son. Kind of tried to clean up for a little bit, and things didn't really work out. I started using heavier and heavier.
Like, what do you mean heavier and heavier? Just more and more?
No, like
Heavier drug?
heavier pills, more like Oxycontins, Opanas, higher milligram dosages. Then I hurt my back in a horse accident, messing around with horses, and I got put on pain management, and shoot, that skyrocketed everything from there. I was a full-blown addict by the time I was 16. Not using needles or anything like that. And then it just snowballed into something that I thought was a luxury at the time, and it was. At that time it was a luxury. I get into my 20s, and it started to become a necessity around 21 to 22. It started to become a necessity. I needed it to function. Needed pills or some kind of something in my system to be able to get up, go to work, and do all these different things. I walked away from my family when my son was like a year old. Walked away, fell deeper into my addiction, depression, and all this other stuff, and kind of tried to sober up for a little bit. Won him in custody court, and I think I celebrated by getting loaded, and it was just a downhill spiral after that. Mixture of coke, meth, crack, heroin, you know what I mean? Anything I can get my hands on the reservation at that time.
So where were you living at that time? Were you just
I was
on the street?
No, I was back home,
Okay.
in between my mom's place and a camper trailer, living in my truck back home on the res, Newtown, Mandarin area, working in the oil field, working long hours, doing different things. And, I saw it escape the geographical change from I'm gonna get off the res and I'm gonna go to Bismarck. You know, my father figure, my uncle, kind of invited me to come stay with him. You know what I mean? And I didn't know that he was as big into pills as I was. You know, and I moved to Bismarck thinking I was gonna get my education and give my son a better life and this and that. And shoot, I moved right in with a heavy addict himself.
Wow.
You know, and it was off to the races as soon as I found out my uncle was dibbling and dabbling in pills that he had from his back surgery, and just took off like wildfire again. You know, and it was a necessity. I didn't understand what powerlessness was. You know, for many years, and I ended up. My son was probably in first grade. I ended up getting kicked out of my dad's place. He kicked me out because he found out I was messing around with meth and trading pills for meth and bringing meth into his house and all this other stuff, man.
So you slowly got rid of the pills and started getting into meth?
Yeah. Slowly but surely, I just traded one for another.
Yeah.
Because the pills were too expensive, meth was cheaper, and at that time it was still kind of decent, you know. Got strung on meth, gave my son up, gave him away to my mom, signed him over in social services custody to my mom, and I just vanished, man. I just took off. I take off for months at a time, come back, try to be a father, living at the trap house, living in vehicles. Then I would go, you know, different times of the year. I'd go down south and stay with my brother in Lawrence, Kansas, and it's a party town, man. You know, they got Haskell Indian Nation and Kansas Jayhawks right there, man, and Kansas City, Missouri is only a half hour away, and it just turned out to be even more of drug central. You know, it was easier, cheaper, faster to get it. You know, different things like that. And then I'd go out to Minneapolis and spend time out there. You know, when my brother would go visit, you know, his mom and things like that before she passed, and it was the same thing, man. Same thing as in Kansas, man. It was available. It was cheap, quick, fast. You know, easy money. Different things like that. And then I started getting picked up for drug possessions in 2017. I got picked up for my first meth charge here in Bismarck. Pills, meth, and weed. And I just took off, man. I went on the run because that's what I thought. I thought that's what you do.
The solution?
I thought that was a solution.
Wow.
Just to take off, and you know, I stayed in that. I stayed in that everlasting cycle from 2017 to March of 2019. Almost 2.5 years I stayed in that cycle. I built up 13 felony charges. Got pulled over with a loaded 45.
Now this era where you were all methed out, were you all skinny and just...
Well, I mean, I was still like 250. You know, You could tell I was on dope.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? The family didn't want me around.
Did you go into a lot of psychosis at that time? Being up for days, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you handled it? No?
I
Had a loaded 45 too?
I wouldn't say handled it. You know, I did the best that I could, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With what I had.
The lifestyle.
With the lifestyle,
Yeah.
you know, and going from city to city, back to Bismarck, you know, there's just a lot of, you know, I did a lot of crazy things. I hurt a lot of people, especially my family. Stealing money, stealing jewelry, pawning my son's computer. You name it, I've done it. You know what I mean? There's nothing in the drug world that I haven't done. You know what I mean? Things that I'm not proud of, I've done. You know, but then in 2019, I got picked up for 13 felony charges, picked up a 14th charge, and then I got sent to prison. And did my time in prison. I got out of the halfway house in December 26th and 19 on my prison sentence, and you know, I thought I was good, man. I was gonna take it slow. Had a job, had a good chunk of change saved up from where I was working, and I get to a hotel room by noon on the day after Christmas, man, and my homeboy was there waiting for me, and he had an ounce of dope and a pipe in his pocket, and you know, I picked up one time just to pick up for one time, and I didn't put it down for almost 2 years. And you know, it was same stuff, man. On parole, getting loaded. You know, COVID came around and they weren't doing in-person checks. You know, my PO at the time told me, he said, "Man," he said, "I would have revoked you a long time ago. You know, I know what you're doing. You know, you got brand new cars sitting in your driveway and you're not working anywhere and this and that, you know. Wish me luck." I got off parole in May of 2020, and I was already back in the full swing of things, doing the things that we all do when we're getting loaded. You know, destroying lives, destroying multiple different girlfriends' lives at the time. Just, I wasn't a good person. Didn't care about anybody or anything as long as I had my fix.
You're making babies?
No babies.
No,
Just, I got one boy. He'll be 15 this November. He's the only boy that I got.
Wow, that's cool.
You know, nobody's came up and said, "Hey, you got a kid of yours." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was some babies though that didn't make it.
Yeah.
You know, due to circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, which is, you know, I guess today I look at it as that was God.
Mm-hmm.
God having his hand in the mix and making moves that I wouldn't make for myself. End of 2020, I got evicted and I started living in a garage at my mother's place. She was getting sickly, and she just, she admitted the fact that her son was gonna die as an addict. You know, so all of the majority of 2021, I lived in a little single car garage through the winter and all the summer. And my older brother died from a methamphetamine intoxication and diabetic ketoacidosis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's where people who have diabetes don't take care of themselves, their blood starts to clot up. And so he ended up dying August 2nd of 21. And by then, my little brother was in sober living, so he'd always say, you know, "You can get sober, man. You can get sober. Come hang out with us guys, and come to a meeting and find a
Come
sponsor.
to the dark side.
Come to the dark side. Come drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
You know, and the grass is greener." And I used to sit there and just laugh at him and be like, "Man, get out of my face,
Yeah.
dude."
I don't want to hear it. Huh?
Yeah, I didn't want to hear it, man. I just wanted to, you know, I wanted to numb that pain and get loaded. And on October 5th of 21, probably about noon, I was getting loaded with an ex-girlfriend of mine. She wasn't getting loaded, but I was getting loaded in the garage, and the U.S. Marshal showed up.
Damn.
There was like 10 deep. You know, they showed up, surrounded my mom's house. You know, had guns in my face, hooked me, booked me, took me in on my 15th, 16th felony charge for possession with intent to deliver and manufacture. I got picked up with 41 grams in my right pocket next to my wallet. And while I was in Hotel Burley, you know, my brother hit me up on my Texter and said, "Hey man, I got a year sober." And I'm like, what the frick? How is this little guy, you know, how does this guy have a year sober, man? I know this kid, I got high with this kid, I lived with this kid, I showed this kid, you know, some of the ropes, and he's doing the deal, you know, and you know, he had some ties with some other guys within the sober living that we were both in, you know, and they got me out of jail, you know what I mean? They got me out of jail, and I took off because they let me out at like 5 in the morning, man. And they weren't supposed to let me out till 8. And I took off, man. My little brother was mad, calling me, "Where you at?" And da 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 da. You know, and that's what kind of started my whole journey into this recovery thing, man. The day I got let out and took off, and when my mom and them found me, I went to my lawyer's office, and
So you ran? You ran from the lawyers? You ran from your family? Like you were gonna go on a run?
no, I took off from the jail because I was
okay.
supposed to be picked up by MHA Recovery Services, and I took off.
They just left.
Yeah, I just left. I didn't know,
Yeah.
but my mom and them found me. I was at my ex's place, and then I went and met my lawyer. But when I was outside with my mom and him before I went to go meet my lawyer, because I didn't know who he was at the time, he was actually my little brother's lawyer. My mom was crying, and I was standing next to her car, and I was like, "What's going on?" And she said, "I just came from your uncle's place, and I asked him to make me a loan, and so she gave me like five or 6,000 in cash." And she said, "This is to help pay for half of your lawyer." She's like, "I don't have 15 years to wait for you to get out of prison," because at that time I was looking at 15 years straight time in the state prison, and I barely missed the federal limit by 9 grams of going to federal prison. And so her and my uncle helped pay for half of my lawyer. And I went in there open-minded, you know, didn't want to be there, was thinking about going on the run. And they tried to get me into Good Road Recovery. They tried to get me into PRC down in Raleigh, PRC in Partial. And beds were full. They didn't want to place me in Hartview and here in Bismarck because I was a runner. You know, I ran on every probation, every drug patch, every felony charge I've got. I always took off, and they got it set up to where I would go to Keystone down in Canton, South Dakota, and man, I did not want to go. But after some talks with the judges and different things, I got approved by the state to go down to treatment in South Dakota, and in October 12th, we were on the road, man. We get down to Canton, South Dakota. I didn't know where I was at, man. It was a little rinky-dink cowboy western town. I didn't know where I was at.
Were you dope sick?
No, I
cleaned up a little bit?
I cleaned up in jail.
Okay.
Got down there at like midnight, and my family just dropped me off at this freaking, looked like an old hospital, man. Green walls and insulation coming out of the ceiling. And it smelled funny, and they gave me one bag. Took off with my other bag back to Bismarck, and I was there. You know what I mean? I was like, shit, I'm here. What am I gonna do? You know, did the first 30 days You know, I thought I was only told I was gonna do 30 days by some people. 30 days came around and they extended me for another 30. And by then, you know, some kind of sanity had returned. I was, you know, starting to be myself, putting on some weight. Um, and then did the last 30 and I came back up to Bismarck. I came back up on the bus and met my mom. And the night I got back in Bismarck, my mom's boyfriend's brother used to be my plug. Well, he comes knocking on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning looking for his brother, and so I opened the door and I was getting ready. That next morning I had to get a drug patch on and jump through the hoops of pre-trial release and being out on bond. And he pulls out a bag of dope, man. He was like, I suppose I can't entice you with some of this, and da 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 da, man. And I just put my headphones on. And I just laid there, man, and listened to my music, and I was like, man, what is going on with me? Next morning, I went and get my drug patch on, and I was so scared of getting loaded and going back out that I stayed in the garage in middle of December, freaking doing jumping jacks and running in place and saying the Serenity Prayer, because that's the only prayer that I really knew from like the rooms or anything. And I had a little booklet. There's a little red booklet. It was a AA meeting in a pocket, and I was reading those readings, and I get a phone call, and it was my bro who started sponsoring me, and I was like, hey man, I'm going to a meeting. What are you doing? I was like, I'm standing outside in this garage with no heater. You know, it's freaking cold, and I was like, I don't want to go inside because my plug's sitting inside right now, and he said, okay, you know, then I'll call you back if I'm gonna go. And so I hung up and I went inside to warm up for like 10 minutes, and my mom's companion and the brother were gone. And as soon as I walk outside, they pull in. And as soon as I step out of the house, I see him pull in, and then my phone rings, and it's my sponsor, and he's like, hey man, you wanna come to this meeting with me? And I was like, yeah dude, get me out here. He was like, I'm like 5 minutes away from your address. So he came, picked me up, went to a meeting. It was a Tuesday night in Mandan, you know, and got there, I didn't know what I was doing, you know what I mean? Just fresh out of treatment, you know, scared, didn't know whether up was up and down was down. And went to that meeting. This man came up to me, same guy that picked me up, gave me a hug and said, I never have to use again, you're right where you need to be. And I broke down in tears, man, you know, because I didn't want to go back out. But I did, but I didn't, you know what I mean? It was that struggle of what am I gonna do, you know, and drove me back to my mom's, and you know, said he was gonna sponsor me. And then we get right into the step work, man. That next day I started doing step work, you know, learning and understanding what step one is all about, you know. And then my dad dies, you know what I mean? Like a month after I got out of treatment, my dad dies. And so we go back for the funeral, help get the funeral arrangements put together, get everything set up, you know what I mean? And then my sponsor shows up down in Mandaree and helps us boil meat and sticks through the whole thing, you know. So I'm trying not to cry right now. You know what I mean? And he helped walk me through, you know what I mean, my dad's death, you know what I mean? And we start getting more into step work and leading. I started to learn, you know, what step 2 is about, you know, and then step 3 and making that decision, you know what I mean? Then after the funeral and stuff, I get into my 4th step, and everything starts changing, man. You know, I didn't know what a spiritual awakening was until I looked back at it later on down the road, you know, and it was one of the things that really woke me up, that I seen that I had a change of perspective in my life, was about a month after my dad died. I was at the bank like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and one of my old homies shows up, or just sitting outside the bank. I walk in and I'm coming out, and he's walking in. He's like, hey man, I got that for you. remember I ripped you off a couple hundred that, like 2 years ago. Hey, I got that. I'm gonna pay you back. And he goes to his car and he comes back out and he's got an ounce of meth. And I was like, no, man, I don't care about that, man. Just keep it.
Yeah. Damn.
You know what I mean? Just keep it, man. I wish you the best. You know what I mean? The cool thing is now he's in recovery. You know what I mean? I see him at meetings and he's doing real good. You know what I mean? But that's when I realized was that moment in time when I was able to refuse my choice of drug and say, no, I'm good, man. I don't want anything to do with that. And finish my steps. I start sponsoring guys. Trying to do the deal, trying to do what everybody else around me that had legitimate recovery was doing. You know what I mean? Probably like the first 7 or 8 guys I sponsored went back out. You know what I mean? I was about to give up and say, heck with sponsorship. I'm just gonna coast this thing out and see what happens. And then a month after my 1 year, on October 5th, that night or that morning of October 5th, my mom dies in my arms. You know what I mean? She had heart surgery and was going through these different things. She had COVID and she was sickly up to this point. You know what I mean? My mom died, freaking devastated. Did the funeral, did all that stuff that goes along with it. And like a month later, like right around my birthday, sometime in December, the beginning of December, me and my son get kicked out of her place because of my felony charges, and didn't have nowhere to go, didn't know what I was gonna do. I talked to my boss, and he was like, yeah, man, just pack up your boy, get what you need, man, and move back into the sober living house, and you guys can stay there for as long as you need. So we packed up, man, went back down to Scott's house in Bismarck. You know what I mean? The boys gave me and my son our own room. You know what I mean? Still wasn't really hooked into the sponsorship thing. You know what I mean? I was still trying to, deal with my mom's death and figure out how to do all that. You know what I mean? But I had a lot of support through it. And then God brought this guy that I grew up with in my life, man. He asked me to sponsor him. And picked him up as a sponsor. And by the end of December, it was actually December 26th, I think, I bought my trailer house from my sponsor. He moved from Lincoln to Bismarck, and he was able to sell me his home. And so me and my son moved into our house we have today, and I was starting to sponsor this guy and kind of go through the step work with him, man, and I realized how important sponsorship is to keep me sober, to keep me clean, to keep me going. You know what I mean? Because God put this guy in my life and he did all the steps, got through his steps, started working with other alcoholics and addicts for his own recovery, man. But the freedom and the joy that it gave me back by sponsoring this other dude, man, kept me clean through the aftermath of the depression and the anxiety and the missing my mom and all this other stuff. It kept me going. You know what I mean? Kept me in a safe place by working with others. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the most important things. If anybody can get anything out of what I have to share here today is helping somebody else out in those hard times. And if you're an Alcoholics Anonymous or decide to go, and I'm not trying to say I'm part of Alcoholics Anonymous or anything, but in the chapter Working with Others, that first paragraph, if you have a big book or you're into a big book, check it out, man, because it talks about when other activities fail, helping another alcoholic is going to ensure immunity from drinking. And that came true into my life. When I first heard that, I thought the guy that was telling me was full of crap about it, until I experienced something that everything else I was doing failed. Going to meetings, going to ceremonies, doing all these things, you know what I mean? All of it failed, man. And I wanted to off myself, because I was hurting so bad from losing my mother and my father within a year of each other, almost a year of each other, you know what I mean? And ever since that time, after my first year clean, I start sponsoring guys, man. Um, when I don't have somebody that I'm not sponsoring in a book, my life gets unmanageable. You know what I mean? But I've been through enough things in my recovery thus far to know that when things are getting hard and I get stuck in myself, I have tools that a 12-step program has given me to get out of it. You know, and one of them is sponsorship, man. You know what I mean? Because for me, I've experienced those things that happen to somebody that's in recovery, that the tools that they give you to kind of coast are going to stop working. You know what I mean? And I got tools today to where when I'm feeling off or I'm going through a real life struggle, I know what I need to do to get out of that funk. You know what I mean? Whether it's being a service and helping somebody move, or cutting somebody's grass, or hauling trash for elderly, sponsorship, you know what I mean? Being a service to my family, you know what I mean? Whatever it may look like, there's all kinds of different ways I could be a service to get out of those hard times, or those mental blocks that make you feel like you want to go back out, or make you think that, man, a good bowl of dope right now would take all this away. You know what I mean? Or a nice jug, you know what I mean? But for me, it's sponsorship, man, which kept me out of those serious scrapes of going back out. You know what I mean? And I've been, even a year after my mom died, man, I was going through some struggles, dealing with my mom not being gone, missing her for 1 year, all these other things. My grandma died, my son had throat surgery, you know what I mean? And same thing, man, like my life was unmanageable. I was having crazy thoughts and trying to put plans into action, and God came into my life, and one day, boom, 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 5 guys in one morning, like within like 2 hours of me getting to work, 5 guys asked me to sponsor them. You know what I mean? Two or three of them are sober today, 2 went back out. You know what I mean? And so I know that when I'm going through a hard time, I just got to keep my eyes open, and God's going to present somebody somewhere to give me a hand, you know what I mean? And with my sponsees, I tell my sponsees all the time, man, like, you are helping me more than I'm helping you, because when we meet up, I get to go to bed sober that day. You guys are helping me ensure that I get to go to bed sober. You know what I mean? And that's the ticket for me today, man. You know what I mean? Is giving this thing away that I got for free. You know what I mean? Some guy sat down with me, took time out of his schedule to meet with me, and to cry with me, and to help me, give me suggestions on what to do and where to go, and how to navigate through these recovery times that are good, the ones that are bad. And it's a beautiful thing, and so I try to do that. I try to do that for my guys that I sponsor today. You know what I mean? The handful that I got. And it's just it's been a beautiful road, man. It's not easy.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not an easy road, especially being a single father, because I don't know how to be a father to a 14-year-old kid that is kind of coming into his own. But I get to be there today, and I get to do things like this, and I get to live a completely different life, man. Like, I get to wake up in a home that I own, a vehicle that I own. You know what I mean? I get to have problems of luxury today, and it's a lot better of a life on the bad days today, you know what I mean, than some of the good times. Because I'm not gonna say all the good times in active addiction were crappy, but like, some of the good times in active addiction were good times, man. You know what I mean? Like, I had fun.
That's why we do it.
Yeah. But I'm grateful that I don't have to wake up and try to find a fix. You know, I'm grateful that I get to wake up and my heat's on.
Yeah.
You know, my bills are paid. There's some food in the fridge. You know, my son doesn't want for anything. You know what I mean? And I get to be a father, man. Like I get to be a father. I get to have a job. You know, I get to go through things, and I get to experience being broke because of bills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
That's cool.
it's you know, it's a beautiful life I get to
Yeah.
live today, and I'm grateful for every minute of it. Even though sometimes I like to forget um, where I came from. You know, because I got a built-in forgetter, and sometimes, you know, I still get the thought sometimes of, man, if I, you know, on good days, man, you know, a good hot rel or two would be just fine. You know, I could probably get away with it, you know. But the reality of it for me is, you know, I know, you know, and I had that experience of getting out of prison and picking up, and I couldn't let it go, you know, and that's my future if I pick up, man. You know what I mean? I'm gonna end up right back in jail. I'm gonna end up right back in prison, probably on the run. You know what I mean? I'm gonna give my son to somebody in the family if they'll take him. You know what I mean? And you know, I don't want to do that today, man. Like my recovery looks different than it did in the beginning. I don't go to as many meetings because my life evolved into something different, you know. But I sponsor a lot of guys when I can, you know. I always try to keep at least one guy in the book, and you know, just I'm just enjoying it, man.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying the gifts of recovery.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Keeps you on your toes, huh?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Especially like it's crazy when you get lax and then God puts something in your path, you know, real quick.
Yeah.
A God shot is like I call it.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Like today I was in the bathroom and I blew my nose and I threw a piece and it hit the trash and landed down. I'm like, I was gonna walk out. But I remember Justin Baker's story about the shopping cart, you know, like putting the shopping cart back. You know, shout out to Justin.
Yeah.
I still remember that, you know, as simple as putting a shopping cart back, you know. So I went over there and I can't bend down. I used my cane and I picked up that, I put it against the wall and I grabbed it and I threw it away. You know, it's just little things like that. You know, we don't have to live that ugly life no more, you know.
Yeah, man, and that's part of it, you know, is having that integrity. You know, having that integrity to pick up a piece of paper, and I think about that all the time too, man.
Simple.
You know, one of the biggest things that, for me, one of the biggest things is, what am I doing when nobody's looking?
Right.
You know what I mean? Am I being a good companion to my companion? Am I being kind, understanding, and patient with her? Am I being kind, considerate, and patient with my son? Even my dog? You know, am I walking this road of recovery like the way I talk it? You know what I mean? Am I showing up and suiting up every day? You know, and trying to do this to the best of my ability? You know, and I fall short, man. You know, I think we all do.
We're human beings.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, you know, I know that I can go to bed saying, you know, I do my very best, even when my best is little or next to none.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And for that, I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful.
Oh yeah. That's a damn good deal, man. Like this recovery program, what it teaches us, you know,
Yeah.
changes our lives, you know. Like I said before, it's simple, but it's not, you know. You got to put in the work in order to live like this. Like for me too, I understand sponsoring. You know, I don't want to sponsor, you know, after that shit, you know. But sponsoring is where it's at for me today too, you know. Like I go over the steps over and over every time I sponsor. You know, it's unfortunate we get 1 out of 2, you know, maybe 2 out of 5 that stick around, you know. But that's all right. You know, they can always come back.
They have to make it back.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You know,
Man.
it's the reality of addiction. Man.
Yeah, and it's even more now that you know what I mean, like people go back out for one time and some people don't make it back, and it's sad, but
Scary.
you know, I use that as a reminder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I use that as a reminder of, you know what, that could be me. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to disrespect anybody or anything like that, but for the reality check of it is if I go back out, that's gonna be me.
Awesome.
You know what I mean?
That's the damn good words. Cool. Do you have any closing remarks or shout outs to anybody out there?
Shout outs for big man JB, Tiff, my brother Manny. I owe a lot of this to my brother Manny. All my sponsees, you guys know who you are. MHA Sober Lives, man, you guys helped me out tenfold in my recovery today and in the beginning. You know what I mean? If anybody ever sees this from Keystone, man, shit, Keystone helped me get my foot in the door. Last remarks I got, man, in closing, if it helps anybody out, man, is when you don't feel like doing something, you better get up and go do it, man. Especially if you don't want to go to a meeting. You know what I mean? Find a home group, find a sponsor, work the steps, and try to clean up the wreckage of your past to the best of your ability. You know what I mean? Because there's 3 steps that deal with people, and that's 4 or 5, 9, and 12. And each one of those steps, every time you do a 5th step, man, you get a high. You know what I mean? You feel funny, you feel vulnerable. Do an amends, whether it's a good or bad amends, you still get some spiritual rewards from it, and you feel funny. And then when you start sponsoring with another person, you know what I mean? You get that ultimate rush, man, and that's where it's at. You know what I mean? It's seeing other people recover, seeing them recreate their lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right. Thanks, Brother Kyle, man.
Bro.
Hell yeah. This is the Recovery Warrior channel. Like I said, I'm expanding. Just hang tight. I want to try to go mobile. You know what I mean? If you're in the Bismarck Mandan area, hit me up on Messenger, on Facebook, Recovery Warrior, RJ Rizzo, or you can comment below. I can come to you. If it's convenient, I can take this mobile. We can set up wherever you want to be, as long as it's convenient time management. Because we're busy men too. But yeah, if you guys see this, I don't know where you guys are all located, but we are based out of Bismarck Mandan area. Like I said, my name is Jay Rizzo on Facebook, our Recovery Warrior. Just look me up, friend me, drop me a message if you guys want to be on the show. We're just starting. And don't forget to hit the like if you like this video. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe. I want to thank my brother Kyle here. I'll ask him to be on in a couple months. We could do a check-in. So thank you again, Kyle.
All right, thank you.
All right, I love you, brother.
Yeah, love you too.
All right, YouTube. We'll see you guys. Thank you for watching. Love you. Bye.